So a couple of days ago, I put out a video talking about the controversy of Ezra Miller's Flash returning in James Gunn's rebooted universe, rebooted DCU. And of course, you guys know the controversy surrounding Ezra Miller. You guys know, Ezra Miller is a creep. Ezra Miller is a freak. Ezra Miller is just a disgusting human being. Like you guys know the whole situation with that. So, James Gunn put out a statement talking about, Ezra's in rehab right now. Ezra's getting help. And so once Ezra gets through that, we'll sit down and we'll talk and, we'll see where we want to go from here. And, I put out a video talking about this, talking about how it is absolute and complete and utter bullshit if they bring back Ezra Miller as the Flash in this rebooted universe, but yet they kick out somebody like Henry Cavill, who, is one of the best, actors in the entire industry right now and is beloved by the fandom, and to a lot of people have wanted to see him get a proper Superman movie. So the idea that you're going to kick out Henry Cavill, but you keep around a scumbag like Ezra Miller is utter bullshit. Now, that being said, I looking at the situation, looking at the statement, looking at what's going on, I took that as corporate speak, that, to be honest with you, that Ezra Miller probably isn't going to return as the Flash. Gal Gadot is probably not going to return as Wonder Woman. And, all these people are probably going to get the boot. All these people are probably going to get kicked out. They're all going to get replaced. That's how I saw it. That, it was a lot of corporate speak and everything. Of course, Ezra Miller being in that protected class of the Rainbow Mafia, they're not going to come out and just fire him. They're not going to kick him out like they did with Henry Cavill, who's a straight white dude. That's the double standard of Hollywood, of course. So that pissed me off. The idea that Ezra Miller could come back, there's a possibility, a potentiality of him coming back as a Flash, but at the same time knowing that, there is a lot of corporate speak going on here. He's a protected class. Maybe he's not coming back, but they can't say it yet because they don't want to get canceled. Now, that being said, though, there's been some other things that have come out since I made that video that James Gunn has said, and there's been some leaks that have come out that has me even more concerned about this universe going forward. In my initial live stream I did talking about the announcement of the DCU reboot, I talked about how I was very confused with the announcement. I, didn't really understand a lot of what was going on. Afterwards, after I got to, look through things, kind of sort through it, I was like, well, there's some potential here. Now I'm not so sure. Now that we have some more statements coming out, we have some more clarifications, I'm not entirely sure that I can say that anymore. The more and more that comes out about this, the more and more that this thing is looking like it's dead on arrival, to be honest. All right. So first of all, let's actually dive into this statement from James Gunn. James Gunn came out and said that this reboot of the DCU, it's not going to be a hard reboot. It's not going to be taking all the Snyder shit and just totally, kicking it to the wayside. It's going to be a soft reboot. That's red flag number one. That's red flag number one right there. When you come out and say, okay, this universe that, given some people did like, I didn't really like it. I liked certain aspects about it, particularly Cavill as Superman. But, most people didn't care for it. I don't think it's a very good universe. I don't think Zack Snyder knew what he was doing. It's an utter mess. It's a clusterfuck. But then James Gunn, who himself has said that the Snyderverse is a mess, the Snyderverse is a clusterfuck, has now come out and said, well, we're not getting rid of the entire Snyderverse. It's going to be a soft reboot. Do you know how fucking confusing that is? Do you know how confusing that's going to be for people coming into this? So people are going to be looking at this and going to be like, so is this a new continuity? Is this not a new continuity? Is it a new universe? Is it not a new universe? Like, why is Viola Davis returning as Amanda Waller? Why is potentially Ezra Miller coming back as the Flash, but we got a different Superman? We got a different Bruce Wayne. Like, what the hell is going on here? This thing is looking like a complete mess. If it's just a soft reboot, it's a complete mess. I was under the assumption that 2023, 2024 was going to be the years where we kind of flush all the Snyder turds down the drain. You know, that we kind of get rid of all the Snyder stuff, we flush it down the drain, and we move the fuck on. But apparently not. Apparently there's going to be some holdovers. And what pisses me off the most is this linked screenshot that we got of the news conference back earlier at the beginning of this week, where James Gunn actually announced all this stuff to begin with before he put out the video on DC's YouTube channel. And that leaked photo from that press conference shows us the titles in DC Chapter 1. Of course, they're not calling it Phase 1 like Marvel, trying to differentiate from Marvel. They're calling it DC Chapter 1. And what pisses me off the most about this is look at the title that's under the Authority. Look at the title that's under the Authority. It's motherfucking Waller. Now, what do we know about Waller? We know that Waller is going to be Viola Davis's Amanda Waller. So it's going to be the Snyderverse Waller. So we already have confirmation now that one of the actresses playing one of the Snyderverse characters is coming back to play the same character. So right there is the possibility that it could happen for other actors from the Snyderverse, including Ezra Miller. Like, what the fuck? And the other thing about this, what's really shady about this, what I find to be really fucked up about this, is that we know from what James Gunn said in the video that Amanda Waller is going to be teaming up with the Peacemaker crew. Now, Peacemaker is what? A James Gunn project. It's in the Snyderverse, but it's a James Gunn project. And what this is coming off more and more to me, it seems like, is that James Gunn is taking his shit from the Snyderverse and he's doing a soft reboot to get rid of everybody else's shit, but he's going to keep his shit in the new universe. That is so fucking egotistical. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's like, okay, well, we're going to do this reboot to get rid of everybody else's shit, but I'm going to keep my shit. I'm not going to get rid of my shit in the Snyderverse. I'm going to keep my shit from the Snyderverse. Continuity be damned. So when I look at this, and I look at some of the other projects in DCU Chapter 1, such as Creature Commandos, such as The Authority, stuff that, you know, people, you know, at least the mainstream audience are not really going to know about. Hell, I wouldn't consider myself a comic book expert, but I have kept up with the comic books in the past. I was not aware of what the hell Creature Commandos is. The Authority, I had a vague, not really knowledge of, but, you know, a vague, ability to be able to recognize their existence. Like, I knew that the team existed from not even the comic books, but just like reviewers and stuff. Like I brought up, you know, like Lynn Carr from Atop the Fourth Wall, who I believe has actually reviewed some Authority stuff. But I looked more and more into the Authority, and it seems like they're mostly an anti-Justice League. Like, they're the antithesis to the Justice League. And the more I look at stuff like Creature Commandos, which is like this weird, wacky thing, the more I look at the Authority, and I see it's this very edgy, you know, authoritarian, like, you know, team that's like the antithesis of the Justice League, the more I'm like, wait a minute. Hold up now. Like, all of this stuff falls into James Gunn's warehouse. Like, all this stuff falls into like stuff that he actually, you know, like the style, the grittiness, the wackiness, the out there shit that the mainstream honestly doesn't give a damn about, but James Gunn does. And when you look at the video where he made these announcements of, you know, like, oh, the Authority is a passion project for me, James Gunn. Creature Commandos is a passion project for me, James Gunn. The more I look at that stuff, the more I'm like, wait a minute, hold up now. This is looking less like James Gunn bringing his creativity and his talent to serve the greater story of DC and the characters of DC, and it's looking more so like James Gunn is using DC, the characters and the story, as a vehicle to serve his own interests and passions. So this is looking more like a project made for him and less of a project made to make money, number one, less of a project for the fans, and more of a project to satisfy James Gunn and his particular taste and style. And that is really fucking egotistical. Like, this guy was not brought in to co-opt DC and its stories and its characters for his own satisfaction. This guy was brought in to create a cinematic universe. So the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm starting to get the picture here. You know, all the pieces are starting to fall into place, and the picture that they're painting is not a very pretty picture. And it's more so looking like that this whole thing is a James Gunn passion project. This is something that's made for James Gunn, not for the fans, not for people who actually give a damn about DC or its characters, but to satisfy James Gunn. That shit isn't going to work. That's the same shit that happened to Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy didn't give a damn about the lore or the characters. Kathleen Kennedy had an agenda, and that agenda was to serve the feminazis. That agenda was to serve Kathleen Kennedy and her political ideology. So here we have James Gunn coming in, and it seems like this is just, you know, DC's being co-opted to serve James Gunn. That is extremely disturbing. That shit is fucking horrifying. Because that means that this universe is going to be dead on arrival. So here we go again. Another attempt at a DC cinematic universe botched. I don't know, man. Like, the more that comes out about this, the more I find out, the more that I am very, very concerned. I am very worried. And the more I'm like, this is not looking good. This is looking like it's dead on arrival. And even something that, you know, I'm kind of cool with, like Swamp Thing, even that, you know, I'm like, is this really the right movie to come out in your first chapter? Like, your first chapter of this cinematic universe needs to be focused on mainstream heroes, need to be focused on mainstream shit, aka the Justice League, not Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is something you do in chapter 2 after you've built up enough goodwill, enough good grace with the fandom that, you know, they're willing to accept the more weird stuff, the more out there stuff. DC has not earned that with the fandom yet. So, like, what are we doing? And Green Lanterns, this should be a fucking movie. It should be a movie, not a TV series. I mean, I really don't like the idea of doing the TV series. And then this Wonder Woman prequel, Paradise Lost, you're doing a Wonder Woman show without Wonder Woman. God, man, like, can we, like, why is this so fucking difficult to get right? You already have the blueprint with the DC animated universe. All you got to do is translate that into live action. You're golden. God, man. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts on this down in the comments section below. You think I'm overreacting? You think this shit's going to be good? Or are we in for another dead on arrival, botched attempt at a DC cinematic universe? Do you think James Gunn is doing this for James Gunn? Or do you think he actually does give a damn about the fans? Let me know down in the comments section below. That being said, check out my other social media. Check out my other channels linked down in the description box below. Click that subscribe button. Click the like button. Click the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. I'm Jessica James with a Z, and I'm signing off.